Hello everybody, this is Rachel with Rachel McHardy Photography, and I'm doing my first ever video tutorial. I am going to be showing you how I process images using Lightroom, and this is just my own personal style. Every photographer has their own individual look to their photos. I try and keep mine fairly natural and clean looking, and also this is just going to be a quick tutorial. I will usually pull my images into Photoshop after I do them in Lightroom, just to clean them up a little bit more, but today I'm just going to show you the Lightroom aspect of my post-processing. And one other thing to keep in mind, every monitor is different, so to some people this image may look really dark, to some it may look really bright, it may have a different color cast to it. There's not much I can do to really control for that, but that does show the importance of working with a high quality print lab who can help control for things like that. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is crop this image. I don't like the way I cropped it in camera, so I'm going to come over to my crop tool right here. Oh, and first let me make sure to mention that you are in develop mode. You've uploaded this photo and then you click on develop and that'll take you into this module. So, come to my crop tool. It gives me my 9 boxes, which helps with that rule of thirds. I want to make sure that this is locked down by clicking on it. If it's not, you can end up getting some weird crop ratios, and that can be difficult for a lab to print. So, I'm going to make sure it's locked down, and then I'm looking to put her eyes on this top line right here, because that's the most important part of my photo. And then I think I'll center it a little bit more right there. Hit enter and we've got a crop. Now I want to work on my exposure. To me this is just a little bit dark, so I'm going to move this exposure slider up just a titch. Maybe about right there. And then I'm also going to adjust my brightness. I'm going to bring that up a little bit. I'm just looking to illuminate her face a little bit more. Maybe about right there. Now, I also want to add in some fill light. Your fill light fills in the opposite side from your main light source. So in this case, the sun is my main light source and it's coming behind her. You can see she's backlit. So I'm going to move my fill light up just a little bit, and that can help get rid of some dark circles and things like that. I don't want a ton of fill light, just a little bit. Okay, so I like how her face is looking. That's what we're looking at first. But I want to check and see what I'm overexposing. So I come up to my histogram and I hover over this arrow. And everything that's in red means it's being blown out, and that means there's no information available, and it's basically registering it as a big white blob. So to compensate for that, we have this recovery slider, and you can move this up and it'll start to bring back some of that detail, but you have to be careful because recovery can add a gray cast and bring some gray to skin and white areas, and we don't want that. So you can see now that I'm hovering it here, there's not a lot of blown out areas, just a little bit on her earring and a little bit on her clothes. As long as it's not on her face or a lot on her clothes, I'm okay with that. So I think that's good, and I'm pretty happy with how that is exposed. Now the next thing I want to do is add a little bit of depth and contrast. So I'm going to slide my blacks up a bit. It's going to start giving some depth to her hair and to her eyes. Maybe about there. And now I'm going to come down to contrast, and the contrast makes your lights lighter and your darks darker, and I actually am going to slide this down just a little bit to about there. I'm going to bump up my clarity just a tiny bit. If you go too much, it can make her look old. If you go too little, she looks plastic. So I'm going to go to about right here. Vibrance intensifies the color, and you can see if I do too much vibrance, I'm getting abnormal colors. The whites of her eyes are now blue, and she looks like she's wearing magenta eyeshadow, and it's just not a good look. So I'm going to do about there. I want to see a little bit of color in her lips and her eyes. That's what I'm looking for with vibrance. Saturation, the same thing. If you do too much, you get orange and blue again, and the background looks fake and all kinds of crazy colors. If you pull it all the way down, that starts to change your photo to black and white. So I think I will go about there. That looks good to me. Okay, the next thing I want to work on is my white balance. This image is a little bit too cool for my taste, so instead of jumping right into white balance, I'm actually going to scroll down and come down to this split toning area. And I'm going to click on this box. And I've played around a lot with this, so I know where the sweet spot is for my images. But just to give you an idea, if I went with a blue split tone, it gives my image a blue color. Same with green, all the colors. It just brings out that tone a little bit. So I am going to come about right here. And I think I'm going to make the saturation just a little bit greater. Maybe about there. And again, I'm just looking at her face right now. I want to bring a natural, healthy color to her skin. I'm going to work on the shadows. The shadows I make a little bit darker. I want that tone a little bit darker, a little bit grayer, maybe even a little darker. That looks pretty good. And then I like my balance, I like to slide it down a little bit towards this end. You can see up on your histogram, it's just spreading these in and out. Watch the histogram. It's very subtle, but it does change it a little bit. So I'm looking to go maybe about right there. Okay, now I'm ready to come up to the actual white balance slider, and I want to bring the temperature up just a little bit. Maybe that's a little much. Maybe about there. And again, I'm just paying attention to her skin. As the photographer, I know the color of her skin and what it looked like while I was shooting, so that helps me as well. I know she had a little bit of color to her. If this was somebody who was very fair, I probably wouldn't warm it up much because it's going to give their skin an abnormal warmth to it. This tint is just looking a little on the magenta side to me, just a tiny bit. So I want to counteract that by bringing in a little bit of green. Ooh, not that much. Maybe about there. Okay, so now I'm happy with the way her skin looks and the exposure. So we're winding down. I'm going to come to my tone curve, and I'm just going to add a little bit of finishing details. I like a little bit of an S curve here. So you can click on these and drag the lines up or down. I prefer the sliders. I feel like it gives me just a little bit more precise control. So I'm going to bring my highlights up just a little bit, and my lights, and then bring down my darks. just a little bit. So you can see that made this dark area even darker. The shadows I'm going to bring down as well. And I think that's a little much. About there. So I'm happy with the way she looks. Again, I'm just paying attention to her face, her hair, all the details on her, not so much the background up to this point. So the final touches for my Lightroom edit are to come to this color area and decide what colors I want to intensify. I generally don't intensify red, orange, or purple much, because you can see if I intensify the purple, it starts to bring up the purple in her eyes, and that's not what we want. So I do have some green in my background that I'd like to intensify just a little bit, so I'm going to saturate it just a little tiny bit. A little bit goes quite a long way. And I'm going to pull it a little bit more this end. If I go this end, it makes it a little bit more yellow. Too far this way and it's an unnatural color. So I'm going to go about here. And then luminance makes that green brighter or darker. I want her to stand out more, so I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Sharpening, I'm not going to sharpen this image. I feel like her eyes, you can see all the individual eyelashes and it looks pretty clear to me, so I'm not going to worry about that. Noise reduction, I shot at 160 ISO, so I don't have too much grain in this image. Lens correction, I don't need to deal with that. I don't have any serious distortion. Vignette, sometimes I'll add a vignette, not a huge one. A vignette, just so you can see what it does, darkens these corners on the other side. It makes it white. I rarely go towards this end because I think it makes it look like a cheesy Christmas card. So I am going to slide this down so I can show you the other ones. Roundness, midpoint, as you can see, shows you where the middle of this vignette is. I'm going to bring that back to 50. I usually don't mess around with that much. Roundness, if I bring it all the way up, this vignette is now really circular. If I bring it down, it's more square. Bring it up this way. Feather, if I bring it all the way down, it makes it a really harsh line. If I bring it all the way up, it distributes it a little bit more evenly. So now for the real vignette, I'm first going to bring this way down. I only want a teeny tiny vignette. I don't like round quite as much as I like square, so I'm going to bring this towards the square end, and I'm going to feather it a lot. It's just a subtle difference. It helps bring the eye towards the lighter part, the center. And I want to especially be careful on this because she's wearing white. If I do too much of a vignette, it'll start to cast some gray on her clothing, and I don't want that. So I'm going to bring that back out just a little bit. And that's really all there is to it. Like I said, I'd then pull this in to Photoshop and clean up her skin, maybe do a little bit more with her eyes, but I feel like this gives me a clean image I can work with and perfect even further. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will try and answer it as best I can. Please go ahead and subscribe, And let me know what other tutorials and photo questions you have. If you'd like to have a tutorial about your camera and how to shoot in manual, if you want another post-processing one, if you want to see behind the scenes of a stylized shoot, we can go on a photo shoot and film that a little bit. Just let me know. If you subscribe, then I will take your suggestions seriously, because that shows me you are sincerely interested. Thank you again for watching. Please check out my blog. Go to www.rachelmchardyphotography.com. You can also like me on Facebook, find me on Pinterest. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those below, and I will talk to you soon. Happy shooting.